hearings have been called to amend the Children's Act to update certain definitions to provide for children's right to privacy and protection of information. It's an important issue, sometimes dry, but it is important. Online abuse and sometimes a cavalier attitude by the media is a perennial problem. Family lawyer Ann Skelton, good afternoon to you and welcome. Why do we need these updated amendments?
Well, one of the problems at the moment is that the Children's Act does protect the identity of children if they're in children's court, which is at the magistrate's court level, but doesn't protect them if they're in a high court proceeding. And there are some children's rights matters that end up being dealt with there. Let's take, for example, the famous case of Zephany Nurse. Her case was dealt with in the High Court, and she had to go to court to get an order to prevent herself from being identified or her true identity being made known. But over and above that, there are also situations like there was a case where two babies were swapped inadvertently by a hospital. Their case was in the High Court. Child abduction cases where one parent takes a child to another country and they have to be brought back. Those are all in the High Court. So what we're really trying to do, I think, through the law reform process is to protect children in all court situations.
Will these be easy amendments to implement, do you think? In other words, is it pro forma or is there likely to be pushback?
I don't think so, but there is an error in the drafting of the bill at the moment because they've deleted the current protection of the Children's Court. So we're having to point out these technical errors. The committee is allowed to push back. I suppose media, people who are looking at it from a media perspective might do so because the Zephany Nurse case, which dealt with media and victims, was fought all the way to the Constitutional Court by the media groups. But in the end, of course, the Constitutional Court ruled that
Ann Skelton, I'm sorry that we have lost you. Always a difficult fight, particularly for those of us in the media that balance. Professor Skelton, are you back with us? Good. I was going to close the conversation by saying it's always a difficult one in the media, picking up on your last point, balancing heightened public interest, as was the case with Zephany Nurse, with the right to protection. But it is the latter, surely, that ultimately should always win.
I think it's important to keep the balance, I agree, but the stories can always be told. It's just the identity that needs to be protected.
All right, Professor Ann Skelton from the Centre for Child Law at the University of Pretoria. Thank you very much indeed.